So, thousands of pages of documents from Jeffrey Epstein's estate have just been released. And, buried deep inside all of that is one single email exchange that gives us this stunningly clear window into exactly how he operated. It really shows the methods he used to build and maintain his network, all of it just hidden in plain sight. Our story really kicks off with this guy, a scientist named Boris Nikolic. Now, when Epstein died back in 2019, Nikolic was named as a successor executor to his will. His public reaction? Well, it was totally unequivocal. He said he was shocked that he hadn't been consulted, and he wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. Seems like a pretty clean break, right? Well, here's the puzzle. There's an email from 8 years earlier that suggests a relationship that was, well, anything but distant. And it raises this really crucial question. How do we square his shock in 2019 with this casual, familiar tone back in 2011? Okay, let's dive right into this email. It's from January 29th, 2011, a direct conversation between Epstein and Nikolic. And it really just pulls the curtain back on the kind of access and planning that was happening inside Epstein's inner circle. First off, Epstein just casually drops some of the most famous names on the entire planet. Mick Jagger, Ken Starr, Bill Clinton. I mean, this wasn't just some idle chatter. This was Epstein showing off his role as this super high-level social gatekeeper. And just listen to the language here. Noodle a bit. It's so casual, so familiar. It implies this little private planning session between Epstein, Nikolic, and someone else before any bigger event. This suggests a pattern of close, strategic coordination. And then, boom, he makes this extraordinary offer. This right here is the absolute core of what Epstein was selling to his network. He wasn't just connecting people. He was offering what seemed like unlimited access to power, to celebrity, positioning himself as the ultimate guy who could make anything happen. And how does Nico leak, the same guy who would later claim to be so shocked? How does he respond? With one simple, high-importance word, agree. That one word confirms he was a comfortable participant in this world of elite social planning, which just makes his later statement so much more complicated. So how can both of these things be true, right? How can a person be a close associate one minute and then a completely shocked outsider the next? Let's try and break down this contradiction. Okay, so on the one hand, you have the 2011 email. It shows this casual, high-level social planning. But on the other hand, you've got the formal 2019 statement, where Nikolic says he was never even consulted and flat-out refused legal role. The key to really understanding this is seeing the huge difference between a social relationship and a formal legal appointment. You see, the role Nikolic was named to wasn't the main executor. It was a successor executor. It's basically a backup. And the sources say this is a pretty standard thing in complex wills. And here's the crucial part, that he was never asked or told about it beforehand. This analogy just illustrates the situation perfectly. Imagine you have a regular golf partner. You're friendly, you know each other well, but that does not prepare you for the shock of finding out he just unilaterally named you to manage his incredibly complex and frankly controversial estate. The social closeness just doesn't equal legal consent. So let's zoom out and see how this one little interaction was actually part of Epstein's much larger strategy. Because this wasn't just about planning parties. It was a critical piece of his entire operation. Epstein very deliberately surrounded himself with reputable people, figures like Nikolic, who was a top scientist and a former advisor to Bill Gates. These relationships gave him what you could call a cloak of respectability. By trading access to celebrities and politicians, he normalized his own presence in these elite circles and helped shield his criminal enterprise, even after he was convicted back in 2008. So here's the crucial point. Knowing everything we know now about Epstein's horrific crimes, we have to look at his language, his offers, and his entire network through a much, much darker lens. Let's go back to that really powerful, open-ended offer he made. I will have no trouble getting anyone you want. In light of his international sex trafficking operation, you have to ask yourself, does that phrase take on a more sinister, double meaning? The email itself gives you a literal interpretation, right? Epstein is offering access to the famous adults he lists by name. But when you factor in the criminal context, the fact that his entire social network was used to facilitate access to victims, it's just impossible not to consider a darker potential meaning. that simple phrase becomes deeply ambiguous and deeply suspicious.
So in the end, this email is a key piece of evidence. It's a data point that confirms Epstein's method of trading access for legitimacy. And it shows Nikolic as a willing participant in that network, regardless of his later and legally justified shock at being named in the will.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. This was the story of just one email. With tens of thousands of pages of these documents now public, it leaves us all with a pretty chilling question. What other truths about Epstein's network are still out there, waiting to be discovered? Hidden in plain sight.